Guys, we are back with another My Hero Academia manga video on this channel, but from now on in English. After a very long break, I decided to come back and revive this channel with the content I like to do. This time in English simply because I want to grow and the international community is much larger than the German one, which made it almost impossible for my channel to grow. Anyways, let's start. There are a couple of major events happening in chapter 419 of My Hero Academia, like the fact that Shigaraki's quirk is the one from Overhaul and what this means in general, what Alpha 1's face swap could reveal in the near future, and other stuff like Overhaul's childhood and Kurogiri / Shirakumo possibly joining the battle. Maybe I'll do a separate video for Overhaul's life and childhood and what I think of him returning and if his story is finished or not. The first thing I like to mention is how incredible Horikoshi portrays the destructive chaos every time we are in the inner world of Shigaraki's mind. Truly magnificent. I remember, I think it was in chapter 350, where we saw Toya waking up after Alpha 1 took him with him, and the room Toya was in looked a lot like the room Overhaul was seen in chapter 158. From there on we knew that there is some sort of connection between Alpha 1 and Overhaul. The thing is, we never heard anything from Overhaul himself saying he knew Alpha 1 or was taken as an orphan. So either Overhaul lost his memory or he fled from there before Toya woke up from his coma. Toya probably burnt the facility down many years after Overhaul left. The age gap between Darby and Overhaul are 4 years. So when Darby was 16 when he woke up and burnt everything, Overhaul would have been 20 years old. But we know that Overhaul was taken care of from Eri's grandpa when Overhaul was still pretty young. So before Overhaul left, Alpha 1 and Dr. Garaki copied his quirk and remodeled it to only be the disintegration without the reconstruction part. So Overhaul did to Eri what has happened to him in a more brutal way. The irony. Looking back at this, the whole thing was planned in detail way back since the Overhaul arc. Probably since the beginning of My Hero Academia even, and Overhaul is a lot more relevant to the whole plot than we might believe. Pretty sure I'm going to do a video about Overhaul and his relevance in the near future because there is no way that Overhaul's story is finished. A big theory I had, and even covered it in a video on this channel but sadly in German, was that the mysterious guy that brought Tenko home was Alpha 1. The same man with the same suit was also seen a couple of chapters later, so to me this was extremely obvious and I think for most of you applies the same. Now that we know that Alpha 1 can change at least his face, there is no way around the next theory to be false either. This wasn't an idea I myself come up with from the evidence, but rather the international My Hero Academia community and most importantly from Vocal Pineapple's takes. With all the prior evidence and especially now seeing literally all the steps and different plans Alpha 1 took in action to ensure that he reaches his final goal tells us everything. Hisashi Midoriya was mentioned from the beginning until chapter 419 we still know almost nothing about him, and most normal people already forgot about that and think that Horikoshi also forgot or doesn't care about something like that. But the longer the wait, the better and more hype is the reveal gonna be. Midoriya lost both of his arms, so there is definitely a solution needed for that problem. Maybe Aizawa will get a quirk awakening in which he can force stop and force activate another person's quirk for a short time while looking at them. In that case, Eri's rewind and even Overhaul's overhaul could potentially be activated to save Deku and maybe even Tenko. But for now this is most probably not the case, because he still wears his A patch and his prosthetic leg. The reason could also be that he used the force activation on Kurogiri to warp him to Midoriya and Alpha 1. Another way is if they could use some sort of injection with Eri's quirk in it, like the bullets Overhaul made. Long story short, Aizawa is back and we see him being ported by the warp gate from Kurogiri, which most probably means that they did manage to save Kurogiri or at least manipulate his quirk. But because the warp gate's color is turning to a bright one, I assume it's the first option and they saved him in some sort of way. The most interesting part is that Alpha 1's danger sense activated, which means Aizawa's coming is seen as a threat by Alpha 1. I think it's safe to say that we can count on Kurogiri / Shirakumo. After all, Aizawa said that those three could still be the heroes they wanted to be.